Hello everyone, I'm Shailaza Mayal, Senior Manager at Samagra, and today I'll be talking about timely textbook delivery to all students of government schools in Himachal Pradesh, one of the interventions that we collaborated with the government of Himachal Pradesh on. So this particular intervention was part of the Samarth program, which was a systemic transformation program with the objective to improve learning able outcomes of students in primary and middle schools, which is grade 1 to 8 across Himachal Pradesh. So these are the different interventions that we were undertaking as part of this entire program. And one of the interventions was essentially focused on learning collateral. So, how do we ensure that textbooks are getting delivered to all the students on time? Now, before we started working on this entire intervention, the first step was to understand, what is happening currently in the state. So essentially, there are two academic cycles in Himachal, one for all the winter schools and one for the summer schools. So the winter schools are the schools where, there is snowfall and the roads get closed. So hence, the entire academic cycle is a very different cycle in winter schools. So hence, that was one key difference in the state that we saw across the state compared to other states in country. There were broadly four printers that were printing books across the state, 24 depots in the sense warehouses where all of these books were printed and then delivered to. In total, there were over 125 blocks, 15,000 schools and 55 lakh textbooks. So that's the scale of the problem statement that we were working on. So the broad issues that we saw in the entire process, number one was that the average delay was of more than 2 months. So if the textbooks were to reach somewhat in end of March before the academic cycle starts in April, the textbooks were actually reaching somewhat in May, June. And during the remote, in winters, in remote regions, the delay was even more. And hence, all of this led to loss of teaching time because without textbooks, it was very difficult for the teachers to teach and students also to learn. So, hence, this was an important intervention to focus on. So the current system before the entire intervention undertook was essentially that the printers were sending all the books to the depot and the blocks were collecting the books from the depot. And then it was an expectation that the teachers will come to the block office. In some situations, the cluster head, which is a head of multiple schools, would come to the block and collect the textbooks and take it to their schools. And in class 6 to 8, the teachers were only coming directly and collecting the books from the depot, which meant that there was a lot of time that the teachers were spending going to the block, collecting the books, coming back, and hence that was causing a major, major delay. So there were multiple actions that we took across different stages. So when it comes to printing of books, the essentially the idea was that how do we make tender a very smooth process, and how do we ensure that there are strict deadlines in the tender so that the printing happens way before the distribution starts happening. Then the second step is essentially demand collection. So it is important for the entire administration to assess how many books they need to print. And hence, that is an activity that happens at the school level. So earlier, the entire system was physical. So physically, the teachers had to submit the demand at the block level, and then the block office collected all the demand, and then it was sent to the state department. We brought in an entire digital mechanism for collecting the demand and also verification of the demand. And after the demand has been verified, there are physical indents that were being issued to all the schools, which means that that is an authority letter that the teachers can take to the depot and then collect the books. So what we did, instead of physical indents, electronic indents were issued, e-indents were issued for authorization purposes. So that also saved a lot of time. That saved around 2 to 3 weeks. Depot management, again, there was pre-packaging of the textbooks at a block level demand as well. Earlier, that was not happening. So all of those best practices of how to manage a warehouse, all of those things were put in the place. And for last mile distribution, earlier it was many to one. So many teachers were coming to one block location. We changed it to one to many. So the block is now responsible to deliver all the textbooks to the teachers. So that change happened, which also saved a lot of time of the teachers. And also then establishing clear roles and responsibilities at every level and who is going to do what. And in the end, an intervention of monitoring and follow-up was created. There was help desk everywhere. There was like a helpline that teachers can call, edit their demand, so that the entire process is being monitored. And wherever there is a challenge, there can be a resolution for that challenge done immediately. So how did we essentially operationalize all of these things? So first of all, it was very important to get all the stakeholders in one room and align them on that key mission, on the key goal that this has to be done. So there was a lot of momentum generation that was done, a lot of alignment with different stakeholders at the state level, then at the district level, and at the block level was done. And there were also different stakeholders involved. So there was the HP Board of School Education, which was responsible for printing the books. Then there was the Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan and the Directorate of Elementary Education, who are responsible for delivering the books. So there were different key stakeholders at the state level also who brought together to align on this entire mission. Then there were very strict timelines that were set, that by so and so date, the books need to be in the depots, then in the block, then in the clusters, and then in the schools. There were very strict timelines that were sent across the state, a very strict schedule. And there was also a lot of accountability set externally for the department as well. So the department openly committed that they are going to essentially deliver the textbooks before the school starts. So there was a lot of accountability that was set in place. So if we look at this entire, roles and responsibility map, so you can see at the state level which department was responsible for what essentially role, and at the district and block level, which officer or which cohort of officer is responsible for what activity. So all of those roles and responsibilities were very, very clearly set across the place. And earlier it was essentially envisioned that there will be a tech system that will manage the entire inventory and the distribution. But then it was decided that there'll be more micro tech enablement that will happen throughout the process. So for example, online demand collection happened over emails. There was a phone number that was given, which was handled by one or two operators. There was an online schedule that was published on the website, and there was WhatsApp that was extensively being used for communication. So live, the block officers were sharing pictures of where have they collected the books, what's happening. Everything is being tracked on a common tracker at the state level. So if we compare the old process with the new process, so this is how it looks. The old process essentially took more than 5 months, and the new process did not took, even a month after the books were printed. So distribution became a lot more easier because of the changes that we spoke about before. And there was very strict monitoring. So these trackers were created and it was maintained at the state level, with the help of the district officers who were also monitoring at the district level. Like I mentioned, that there was a helpline for all the district and block officers. So there was broadly sort of, three categories of queries that were coming from the field to the state level. So there were a lot of like status of textbooks. So many a times the state level officers were calling and checking at the block level, at the district level, whether the books have been distributed to the clusters or not. Then any teacher or any block facing any challenge at the depot to get the demand, they could register their complaints, or any other query, any other miscellaneous query, they could just call this one number. So there was this one number that was essentially given to the entire state to ensure that this activity happens on time. And again, WhatsApp was used very, very extensively to disseminate the information. There was also photos being uploaded on the groups when the delivery of the textbooks was happening. So that created a lot of momentum, and also that created a lot of positivity in the system that this is doable and this is being done by other blocks. So people who are on the group could also see that this is happening across the state, and that was also motivating them. Then for motivating the people who were doing well, the officers who did really well and delivered the textbooks on time, there was like an award ceremony that was kept. There was a recognition that happened. There was also disciplinary action taken against officials who did not ensure that the delivery was happening on time. So there was like a lot of momentum that was created, and an appreciation and reward for the folks who did well in this entire program. And in the end, we saw that Himachal Pradesh became, the first state to deliver more than 55 lakh textbooks to like over 6 lakh eligible students. And this became a case study for other states also to learn how to manage the entire delivery process and ensure that this happens on time. And till date, we are in 2025 right now, and till date, the textbooks are delivered before the academic session begins. So this is one of the interventions that has been strictly monitored, implemented, and there is a lot of like accountability that is built across the system to essentially enable this entire intervention. So you would also see the reaction from different districts and the reaction from different BEOs, and how they also felt. They also felt really happy that they were able to achieve this activity. They got a lot of like appreciation from the parents as well, from the students as well. So that also really was very gratifying for all the officers. So yeah, this is all about how we implemented this intervention. Thank you so much.